So there is fine-tuning. Now, Peter, on the other hand, would like to believe there is no fine-tuning. But you take your pick. Peter or all of these academics? Now, you may claim this is an argument from authority. Well, not all arguments from authority are false, because as Dr. Elizabeth Fricker, the epistemologist, she says, given my limitations as a parametric, I can't know everything. I have to rely on an authority, for example. But I want to give you an example just to highlight that this is not just based on just authority alone. The example is concerning the strong nuclear force. Now, if the strong nuclear force was a long one rather than a short one, there would be no atoms. If there are no atoms, there would be no complex life. This is a simple fact in science.
It was an argument from authority, as you made the dichotomy of the scientific consensus versus Peter. Which are you going to believe? And you did so without giving the actual arguments these people make or what their actual views are. And you know you're doing this dishonestly, because one of my subscribers went to your video and commented that actually some of the people you listed there don't quite agree with you, and you noted that they state things appear rather than are, yet you still count it as if they're saying things are, which is complete and utter rubbish. Also, this dichotomy, which, by the way, was false. It was just a straw man, a misrepresentation of what I stated in my video. The fact that we do not know what other conditions life can survive in was only one of the arguments put forward in my video. It was one of my many points made in defense of Dr. Arif Ahmed, among others, such as necessity and also the idea that you somehow believe your God is all-powerful, yet at the same time he is restricted by the constraints of the universe and the constants. It's quite funny. The point was to reveal your ignorance in which you have pretended certainty. I did not dichotomize between two positions at all. In fact, why don't we just play the core segment of what I said? Okay, well, I think I have a basic understanding of what Dr. Arif Ahmed meant, and thus I'm going to attempt to put it into a simple analogy to help the discussion along. Imagine we are playing a game of roulette. However, rather than choosing the color or number for, themselves, the apologists have someone choose it in secret. So the ball is rolled and it lands on red 21. It is then announced that the apologist has won. Now, what the fine-tuning argument is doing in effect is declaring that the probability of the apologist winning was 1 in 37, without knowing what the second person actually chose in secret and, what the apologist's winnings are. They therefore declare this to have unlikely been the result of chance, and thus it must be the result of divine will. In reality, the person who chose for them could have in fact chosen red, in which case the chance of success was just below 50% due to the house cut. They could have chosen odds as well and get roughly the same probability. Fact is that the apologist does not know the probability because they do not know what other numbers could have won the money. Likewise, apologists do not know what variables within a universe allow for life, and even whether a universe can successfully form outside those variables. As Dr. Arif Ahmed notes, the probability of life-enabling universes could have been 100% for all we know, as maybe the wheel only consisted of red 21s. But ultimately, even if the person has specifically chosen red 21 on a normal wheel, that does not then mean that there was some divine will involved. Rather, all it means is that we beat the odds. Thus, the believer shows the exact same mindset as a gambler who believes themselves to be on the divine winning streak, one that could not possibly fail, when that's not the reality. I hope this sort of helps to visualize what is going on. Now, do tell me how that is me claiming that fine-tuning in the sense of a prerequisite of specific variables for life does not exist. Just tell me. I note you don't show any of my original footage, you just show your own footage from your initial video and assert what I stated in a rather straw-manned and butchered form. If you actually had evidence that I had said something fallacious or straw-manned you or, misrepresented you, I have no doubt you would have shown it in a flash. But it seems to be as phantom as that journal by Dr. Olivera Petrovich. All I note is that our chances could have been 1 in 37, just under 50%, or even 100% for all we know. I note each case at differing degrees and differing counter-arguments, and, you just ignore all of this. You just completely, sidewipe this and just go, no, that's not interesting, I'm going to say this one thing, going to make some comments about that, and I win. Yes, I note that maybe the variables for life are wider than you claim, but that was a single example in many, and thus hardly accounts for the entirety of my video. Now, as for the strong nuclear force example you presented, in a universe where that is different, how do we know that the other laws would not be different in a way allowing for life in an unspecified number of instances? Consider the Higgs field, for example. This was a field given off by particles referred to as the Higgs boson that interact with other particles on a quantum level and gave them mass soon after the Big Bang, this quantum expansion. Think of the Higgs field like some quantum ballistic jelly that you shoot a bullet into and it stops and stabilizes the bullet in place. It doesn't make it go faster, it doesn't make it go back out, it just stops it. Think of it like that, but with atoms. How do you know that in a universe with a weaker nuclear force, that some other natural force like the Higgs field would not have merely compensated for this by changing the variables of these particles and how they interact? You don't know, and neither do I. Or anyone for that matter, really. But there is a difference. I am not arguing that this proves necessity or chance or disproves God. I am saying, let us continue to observe science, and thus far we only see the natural forces at work. You take this ignorance and declare that it proves your God exists. That's the difference. It's like the robot which believed in divine will that gave them consciousness merely asserts the fact that we do not know as evidence that it was divine will, when no, that is complete and utter rubbish.
Now, I want to illustrate everything I've said so far concerning fine-tuning and Peter's objection with a powerful analogy. It's about a concrete slab. It takes around 670 pounds to break a concrete slab. However, according to Peter, 1 pound can break a concrete slab. It could be possible that 1 pound can break a concrete slab. Now, say I have only experienced a concrete slab breaking at 670 pounds. Does it mean it's unreasonable for me to believe that it will not break at 1 pound? Or even at 60 pounds? Do I have to experience all possible weights on a concrete slab before making that valid assumption? I think you get what I'm trying to say here.
Your analogy is fallacious, laughably so in fact, as you know the force it takes to break said concrete, and we, i.e. people, know that concrete is a hard substance, thus it's hard to detach from that knowledge we have. I could equally switch concrete with a stick of spaghetti and then ask, if we have only observed a stick of spaghetti breaking as I applied 675 pounds of pressure, am I justified in believing that this is the only pressure amount capable of breaking a stick of spaghetti? Nothing lower or even higher will work. I add this considering all the empty space in the universe. There's room for improvement in the universe. Things could be better, hence the higher. No, to be an accurate analogy, it would have to be an unknown substance with unknown variables. So we take this quasi-matter and we start at 675 pounds of pressure and the matter deforms, it breaks. Does that mean that it required all 675 pounds of pressure to do so? No more, no less. No, it doesn't. We don't know, and I don't know, you don't know, nobody knows. At most, we can state that it will break given 675 pounds of pressure, but we cannot claim this to be the only pressure variable to work, or even the lower limit. Remembering, we did not work our way up, as that would be repeated testing, something we have never had with the universe, but rather we arbitrarily started at 675 pounds. Your analogy fails, so stop being so smug.
Now, given this data, and I'm going to mention more data later, why would Peter expect a life-permitting universe with a different set of laws and constants? Come on, man. Sorry for the colloquialisms. It denies what we currently know about these laws and constants, and frankly is an argument for ignorance. What's the ignorance? It is the ignorance of another life-permitting universe with different laws and constants. However, we have knowledge that this universe permits our existence, permits life under the current laws and under the current physical constants that we have been discussing and we're going to discuss. And if they were different, as scientists argue, there wouldn't be a universe that permits life. So the onus of proof is on Peter to show that under different laws and constants, there could be life. Just like with our previous example, he would have to prove that you can break a concrete slab with 1 pound of pressure or 60 pounds of pressure. The onus of proof is on Peter.
Well, that may be true if I was actually arguing for something more than your ignorance. I'm not. I acknowledge my own ignorance and the ignorance of physics on the matter at the current. A thing physics also understands, which is why we put millions of dollars into CERN and other research projects to test the current hypotheses. My argument is not other universes allow for life, therefore God does not exist. My argument is you do not know either, therefore you claiming this gap in science proves God's existence is fallacious in that it is an argument from incredulity, a God of the gaps, you don't understand another way. You ignore these two testable hypotheses in favour of asserting a non-testable claim as absolute truth. Calling that out is not an argument from ignorance, but rather holding you accountable to what you say. It may be true. Maybe the world was divinely created. But this is not evidence for that, so don't pretend it is evidence for that.
Now, Peter's main point here is that he accuses me of lying because when I say that there is epistemic probability, I use it as some kind of veil to hide the kind of mathematical probability of the fine-tuning of the laws and constants of the universe. I'm sorry, but Peter, and by the way, my father's name is Peter, so I love that name, right? Peter is fundamentally wrong. But I will not stoop so low and call him a liar. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. He assumes, brothers and sisters and friends, that the fine-tuning argument I adopt is based on a mathematical probability. His assumption is blatantly false. And if he emailed me or called the office or sent me messages on Facebook and Twitter, I would have responded.
The video was posted on the 9th of July, and I sent a message on Twitter to you on the 9th of July. Funny that, from this someone could have assumed that I had indeed messaged you about this in order to give you a chance to prove me wrong, to enter discourse. Now, I know you are certainly lying. And yes, I did demonstrate how you attempted to dodge the question as to the claim that this universe could have only come about by design is a claim as to the mathematical probability of it forming via natural means. You claim it as low, therefore it must be design. You kept avoiding this, which was a specific argument brought to you by Dr. Arif Ahmed rather unambiguously. You have no excuse. You either lied about that or lied about understanding epistemic versus mathematical probability. Take your pick.
So there you go. Dialogue and discussion, Peter. So my recent online seminars, which are available online, use non-mathematical conceptions of fine-tuning. Let's educate Peter and educate ourselves. Now, there must have been exactly the right set of laws for life to exist. If these laws were different or even slightly changed, there would be no life.
You have just made a mathematical claim there. Right there, it was just there. That was the mathematical claim. The claim that life-permitting universes could not exist in some form with slight variations to our constants, or the claim that, universes can even exist with, non-life-bearing constants at all, is one based in mathematics. It is a mathematical claim, and nobody knows that. You claim the chance to be 1 in x. Now, we certainly do not know x, and I argue that your claim to 1 is just as equally invalid. It is based in ignorance. It is a pure assertion on the mathematics. One that you could not know, because you cannot know what type of universes could permit life, as you would have to understand all the variables in question. Therefore, this is still a mathematical claim, regardless of what you state otherwise.
These physical laws include the law of gravity, the electromagnetic force, and the strong nuclear force. Let's start with the law of gravity. Now, gravity, as you know, is the force of attraction between masses. Okay, so gravity is the force of attraction between masses. If there was no gravity, there would be no stars, and there would be no planets. And therefore, there would be no life, because there would be no sustainable source of energy to facilitate life. And that's a decent, rational assumption to make. You need some form of solar energy to have any type of life, whether it's carbon or non-carbon life.
Well, we don't actually know what would happen if gravity changed. For all we know, a disjointed gas cloud could ignite in a nuclear fire if the Higgs boson gave the atoms greater mass, meaning they had compensated force from a distance, or maybe they would just form the star anyway, You do not know. The idea that you can argue what would happen if we changed physics in relative certainty is fallacious and unfounded. We are talking about other universes, other dimensions. Oh, and don't think I didn't spot your dichotomy. You stated no gravity. I never argued that. It's not a case of our degree of gravity or no gravity. Why not a slightly weaker or slightly stronger gravity? So you're misrepresenting me there, and I can actually show that by what you just stated there. So, it's sort of ironic that this video is about me misrepresenting you, when you are actively lying about what I have said, and yes, I don't believe this to be an honest mistake at all, as it's happened far too often now. It really does not appear to be an honest mistake.
Let's take the electromagnetic force into consideration. It's a unique force that affects everything with the universe. Some of its abilities include attracting and repelling charges. It's also responsible for giving things strength, shape, and hardness. Now, if there was no electromagnetic force, let's summarize it, EMF, there would be no atoms, because there would be nothing to keep the electrons in orbit. If there were no atoms, there would be no life. Now, without the EMF, there wouldn't be anything to attract charges as well, which is responsible for chemical bonding. And without chemical bonding, you're not going to have any life. So from this perspective, you need the right set of laws in order to have a universe that permits our existence.
First of all, see before, but also, again, why no electromagnetic force? I don't see where I stated that at all in my original video. If you could direct me to that and show me the clip, go ahead. Hell, a slightly stronger one could make molecules from further distances bond better, theoretically. Abiogenesis could have begun much earlier. Less resources may be needed for circulating materials to the body. Again, when talking about a universe with differing constants, my word is as good as yours. Yet, this is still only focusing on part of what I've said.
So now let's move on to the physical constants. If any of these physical constants were different, or even slightly changed, there would be no life. Let's take the gravitational constant as an example. Now, the gravitational constant determines the strength of gravity between masses. Now, Professor Robin Collins, the academic, he argues that if the gravitational constant was increased by a relatively small part, and he states, even single-celled organisms would be crushed, and only planets less than around 100 feet in diameter can sustain life with our brain size. Such planets, however, could not contain an ecosystem to support life of our level of intelligence. So, everything we've just mentioned so far is not based on mathematical probability. It's based on epistemic probability. Now, what is mathematical probability? In a nutshell, mathematical probability is the number of ways event A can occur divided by the total number of possible outcomes. And none of the examples we just mentioned involves this type of probability. What we're saying is that if event A were different, there would be no life. There is a difference. So the fine-tuning of the physical laws and constants in the universe that I adopt, and many other academics adopt, not that I'm claiming to be an academic, of course, is not based on a mathematical type of probability. It's based on epistemic probability, as I discussed in the previous show.
No, you are claiming with absolute certainty that life could not exist in a universe where the laws are different, where there is no true way of knowing this or for us to calculate this without first knowing every other quality of that universe, how it is affected, and putting this all into a massive equation to come to the conclusion on whether said universes could sustain life. Mathematics again. On top of this, you don't understand how these universes form, ergo cannot make such a claim. So to recap, it is still a mathematical probability, as even though we in this universe would not survive as we do, life in other ways could. For example, the change in gravity would enact a change in the requirement of resources for metabolism, thus decreasing the size needed for an ecosystem if gravity decreased. Again, your assertions are really without basis, as when you introduce one change to the universe, I would need a quantum computer to process every impact this then has throughout that universe. Not to mention as well as whether a universe can form in any other way, or if its formation is a necessity, and how many attempts we get at a universe, as if discussing an unlimited amount of rolls from a quantum state, then we go back to my early robot analogy where a robot had to roll 4 million sixes in a row to come alive, but it had all of eternity, therefore it would eventually do it. Deal with my arguments. This is the roulette table all over again. Also, do just note that Dr. Robin Collins never received a PhD in physics. I find it funny that you listed all these scientists who apparently agree with you, and yet you use the guy who has a PhD in philosophy. Because yes, he studied for 2 years to do a PhD in physics, yet then he transferred and he did a PhD in philosophy. So you had all those scientists listed, some were physicists, and yet you decided to only give the argument of a philosopher. Do you think that's possibly because you'd be caught out for quote mining if you listed the arguments made by the others? Ultimately, this argument simply fails to address chance and necessity. It's just a reassertion of the fine-tuning argument, and it still lacks any basis. This is why we are discussing your blindness to the real probability of this universe forming naturally. You don't have a clue, so stop pretending you do. You need that clue to make the epistemic claims you do. If you lack that, then your entire argument goes out the window. Ergo, it is still pinnacle, and yes, you do require that mathematical probability you lack. Therefore, the universe beginning is a question to be answered, and not an assertion as evidence that God exists or anything else exists. I am not using the possibility as an assertion that, these other universes that do harbour life do exist. I don't know. But you can't do the same for God.
Now, Professor Robin Collins explains this quite well. He says, Since some of the probabilities in the aforementioned examples involve singular, non-repeatable states of affairs, they are not based on statistical probabilities, nor arguably are the non-epistemic probabilities. This is especially evident for the probabilities involved in the confirmation of atomic theory, since some of them involve claims about probabilities conditioned on the underlying structure and laws of the universe being different, e.g., for example, atoms not existing. As we said, you don't have any atoms, you won't have any life.
So your evidence is one philosopher with a PhD. Do you remember what my video response was originally responding to? Your video dodging the arguments of a philosopher with another PhD, i.e. Dr. Arif Ahmed. If you want to play argument from authority, then we can both do that and we both cancel each other out. Fact is, I didn't rely on what Dr. Arif Ahmed stated. I made my own arguments. I did not make a single argument. I made several, and you have to deal with all of them in order to claim that the universe is evidence for God. But you haven't. You just state this doesn't exist, it's not relevant, and that is it. That claim is a form of mathematical probability. That is all it can be. You ignore the formation from chance and the formation from necessity, claim these to be unlikely or not probable, so that you may assert only the divine intervention as a cause. This is even though we do not know the probability of a universe existing like this naturally, or what sorts of universes can support life, or, what types of universe are mechanically possible. This is mathematical probability. How can you ignore this?
So I hope we made the point quite clear that Essence of Thought, it's an interesting channel, feigns this intellectual mannerism and sometimes, frankly, rudeness, and tries to maybe, be a form of a type of intellectual reincarnation of Hitchens, for example. It's not going to work. It doesn't work. And you're preaching to the converted, and we get many emails and comments that actually say that, what you're doing is not right. You should just email us because we don't want to do these videos anymore. It's a waste of time just to expose the assumptions, your assumptions, or your assumptions about our assumptions. I don't want to do this. We need to move on in our dialogue and discussion. Send me an email, send us an email, Facebook us, go on social media. You've probably done it before with others. I can't claim that, you've tried your best and no one's responded to you. Maybe you have tried your best. I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt. But I'm telling you, email me and we could have a discussion. I could show to you that actually your assumptions about my assumptions concerning fine-tuning was absolutely wrong, as we discussed. And I hope we've highlighted the point to the wider audience that basically just don't take these type of atheist apologists seriously. Slander, derision, calling people liars, having false assumptions about people's valid assumptions. This is absolutely false. And that's why I think we should follow more of a humanistic, and I would even argue an Islamic ethic, which is just be nice and ask and learn. And yes, we've not been nice in the past, but we want to be nice. And that's a warm call to everybody, to all the online atheist apologists. Discuss with us. Because via discussion, we're going to basically connect in a far more greater way, and we'll improve our arguments. And we've shown through history we're willing to do that and change. There's no point just to basically reinforce crazy stereotypes about theists and atheists. Even in our courses, we teach, don't talk to your judgment about a person, but talk to the person themselves. So from this perspective, I would argue that not only you, Peter, but everybody else should pick up the Quran and engage in something called tadabbur. Tadabbur is what you call ponder, reflect, be deep. Look at a particular verse when it concerns the alternation of the night and day, or when it points you towards empirical and non-empirical realities, and sit back, turn off your laptop, divorce your previous assumptions about religion and theism and divine books, and just reflect. And hopefully, I believe if someone is sincere, through this reflection, God will unlock their heart. As God says in the Quran, have they not pondered upon the Quran, or are there locks on their hearts? So if you ponder on this book, then maybe God will unlock your heart to receive His guidance and mercy. And that's what we want for everybody. So be nice, email us, call us at the office or whatever you want. And I really hope we've made the point really clear. Engage, discuss, don't trust atheists, apologists online if they use these crazy strategies of misrepresentation. And if I've sincerely misrepresented you, I do apologize, and we're willing to rectify anything we've done that's wrong, just like we've done in the past. Peace.
Mistakes you have made. Lying about me contacting you when I've done so 11 times on YouTube and both on Facebook and Twitter. Strawmanning my arguments entirely whilst failing to display my original footage, a decency I always give you, even though you do this and lie. Then there is the failure to ensure that I received this video, or the previous one for that matter, so I could respond to it. That is again a basic decency I always give you. Your argument from authority and popularity, without going deep into what these people actually say. The only one you actually quoted was a philosopher. That was rather bad, because if you have these scientists, especially physicists such as Hawking, which agree with you, why not quote Hawking? The general insults in your video, as well as the title, including the claim of slander for making an evidence-based claim on your character based off of 2 years of observation, as well as projecting your intellectual inabilities onto me. I'm also not an intellectual, by the way. I'm not an intellectual in any strict sense, nor do I claim to be. I am a highly unspecified person in my learning, as I find it, there's too much interesting about the universe to pick a single field to stick with. That's why I like this channel. I get to look at many things from many different fields. But I do catch you spreading false information, especially to my peers at universities. I will go after you. Intellectual or not, doesn't mean I can't be part of academic discourse. My arguments stand as arguments, regardless of who I am. Now, after my previous video, which I also ensured you received on YouTube and Twitter, you posted this comment. You need to ask questions and seek clarification and discuss before you make videos. Don't you get it? Dialogue is about discussion before you send us the video. You can't claim, hey, I always contacted them, because that would mean you've misrepresented our points again. We obviously notice your videos, but that's not the point. The point is to avoid misrepresentation and monologue, you should seek clarification on our premises and assumptions before you do a video. That is dialogue. So claiming you sent us a link, frankly, is not what we are saying. You need to talk, engage, and discuss before you misrepresent, etc. I hope that makes sense. No, it doesn't make sense. Why? You do not live up to that demand you gave me yourself. Did you contact Dr. Arif Ahmed prior making a video on him to make sure that you do not just ignore his points as you did? Did you contact Justin Al-Barrett before you continue to lie about him and his work for over 2 years? Did you contact any of those people you listed in your video yet failed to give their original arguments? Did you contact me at all, anytime, ever before making a video on me twice? No. And notice I included your response to my first half in this video because that's how discourse happens. I can continue making videos, so can you. A video is my discussion. That is why I am on YouTube. If you want to stick to comments, then go back to Facebook. As for this idea that I'm misrepresenting you, if I do so, show it in your videos. Take the clip of you speaking, followed by me speaking, show how I misrepresent you when I show 100% of your content. That is why I send my videos into people, so they can pick out my mistakes, if there are any, and if they reveal there are, I can apologize. The only one who could misrepresent you is yourself. I make no assumptions other than those my ears hear from what you say. Show the misrepresentations I have made of you, without lying about what I've said. Show what I have stated, show my footage. When I claim that Hamza is lying and that he has pretended to have seen a journal by Dr. Oliver Petrovich What do? I play a clip of him saying that. It's really not that hard. We call it evidence. I have contacted you on YouTube, Twitter and Facebook. The Twitter and Facebook held specific questions, i.e., why was Hamza lying and how did you two feel about being caught out about lying before? Not Hamza, Imran Hussein, and I've forgotten who the third person is, but how do they feel about being caught out before then Hamza came to my university? So, yeah, I don't understand this. I've been open to discourse. If you didn't lie, then show me you did not lie. Don't attempt to place restrictions on my work that you are too damned hypocritical to live by yourself. You lot really are pathetic in how you scramble to save yourselves and you end up wrapping the noose around your neck. If you don't want to see videos, then get the hell off YouTube. This isn't a criticism-free zone or a Sharia zone. If you upload a video, then I have the right to respond publicly without your silly restrictions. If I've misrepresented you, then show how. Don't merely continue to lie about what I have said and then show a lack of decency towards me in failing to display my original argument to your viewers, a decency I have always offered you from day one. No, you just want me to stop critiquing. That is not going to happen. Now, since this, and since my first video, you also created a video. This is by Imran Hussein, another one that I've repeatedly gone after. Used to be part of London Dawah movement. I don't know if he's now part of Mission Dawah as well, but he's created a video and he posted it on Facebook. The thing is, how did I come across this? Well, they note it is a message to me, but they did not send it to me on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. They didn't post it to my video. They posted it to their own video, cowering like the intellectual cowards they really are. If you have a message for me, shouldn't you get that message to me, the person it's supposedly meant for? Unless, of course, it is really there to stroke the egotistical cocks of your subscribers. I think it's probably that, isn't it? So, yeah, I will be dealing with that before I go, if I can, because it's relatively short. But next time you have a critique for me, damn well send it to me. This is the third time now you have created a video to me and failed to send it to me. I have flawlessly sent my videos to you the past 12 times now, and this will be the 13th. Believe me.